Welcome to the Tradies in Business podcast with your hosts Warwick Bidwell and Nicole Cox. Divert your phone and grab a brew as Waz and Nick unpack tips, tales, secrets and stuff-ups from guests both inside and outside your trade, helping educate and inspire you to break the cycle of gut-busting and money stress and create a true trade business.
G'day, Coxie.
G'day, Warwick.
How are you?
I'm excited. How are you?
I'm fabulous, and I'm really excited to intro this episode.
Me too. It's a cracker.
I have this feeling in my tummy, Coxie.
Oh, did you go to the bathroom before? Actually, there's a segue. Oh my goodness, you Chuck Norrised without even realizing you were Chuck Norrising.
Please enlighten me. I'm lost.
Well, what was Dan's profession? Or Dan is a plumber.
We're talking to a former plumber today. Although he does say that once a plumber, always a plumber.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't show us his pipes. Yeah, I couldn't turn anything else into that.
I had nothing to say there.
No, you just left me hanging, Coxie.
I did. It's for your fault for having a silly joke.
Now, something that won't happen in today's episode is you hanging out for more or something. That's terrible. Should we just cut to the episode? Because it's way better than this intro. So today we chat to a guy called Dan Pollard, and you may not know, but Dan is the creator, founder, dude of Fergus. And if you don't know what Fergus is, you're about to find out. And you're going to see more of them, particularly here in Australia. Our Kiwi listeners will know exactly who Fergus is, I suspect. But our Aussie listeners might not be as familiar with it. But I suspect over the next couple of years, you're going to see a lot more from these guys. But Dan started a software company to solve a problem in his trade business.
Ring a ding ding.
That's a massive, well, if you want something done right, you just do it yourself.
Absolutely. I'm just going to give it a crack, and what do you know? It worked.
And really, it all came down to cash flow. So, getting invoices out, getting paid. He figured he'd go build his own software company, which is now like a multi-million-dollar enterprise. And has had tens of millions of dollars invested in it by outside parties. So it is a big deal. It's the real deal. And we have a very, very interesting chat with Dan. We don't talk about software. We don't talk about computers. We don't talk about much other than Dan's backstory, which is, honestly, I don't think I say this very often, Coxie, but today's episode is going to flip your lid, listeners. It is very refreshing to hear from a supplier in the trade industry like Dan.
It's not often.
I'm overstating it.
No, you're not. And it's not often that we are blessed with a guest who is prepared to be as vulnerable as Dan was with us today. And that's a great big wanky term, I suppose. Vulnerability, sharing of yourself. I can't think of a better episode for that to have happened in, and I can't think of a better opportunity for our tradies to learn from someone who has really been in the trenches, literally and figuratively. This is an important episode. You need to listen to it. You need your partner to listen to it. You need your colleagues to listen to it. This is one of those ones you really need to be sharing with everybody that you know that is even loosely involved with the trades. This is really important. I hope you enjoy as much as we did.
Righto, so we're joined by Dan, the man from Fergus, all the way across the ditch. Welcome to the show, mate.
Good morning. Thank you. Good to be here.
Now, that all got a bit serious because the three of us... Oh, and Coxie's here. How are you, Coxie?
I'm well. Thank you. Thank you for pointing out that I'm here joining you on this chilly morning.
Well, after you've just had multiple shots at me in the preamble to this episode, I'm not sure I should actually even acknowledge you, Coxie.
Oh, Warwick.
I felt ganged up on Even Dan was having a go at me. I think that, Dan, you're the first guest to lead into an episode by having a shot at me.
I love it.
Well, you're an easy target. I mean,
and there it is, righto. So,
well, we are the plumbers. We are the top of the food chain, right? We're the apex traders,
well, that's
right?
funny, mate, because I was thinking about, I actually prepare for episodes. Now, a lot of our listeners will be amazed to hear that, perhaps based on the quality or lack thereof of my my rambling on our episodes. But I was thinking about, okay, so Dan's a plumber. What jokes can I think of about plumbers? And then there's the usual thing about plumbers and electricians, like this sort of, I don't know what it is. It's like this systemic competition between the two of you.
Well, I'll tell you what it's all about. Like, see, my dad's a builder. And he explained to me like this. Builders are at the top. And so a plumber is a builder with his brains bashed out. And a sparky is a plumber with his brains bashed out. And what was left over got distributed amongst everyone else.
Right.
And I think the never-ending joke is that sparkies aren't real tradesmen, right? They can't really actually use a hammer properly. They can't really put knobs in. I mean, they can just drill a hole, wind a cable around wherever they like, right? It's really easy.
Mm-hmm.
But the annoying thing is they're actually kind of smart.
Yeah. Just a little tiny bit.
You actually have to be smarter than a plumber to be a sparky, and it's kind of annoying. But we are the better tradesmen, and so there's always that balance.
Because water doesn't have polarity, mate, and there's none of this whole, potential energy with joules and amperes and all that stuff I was trying to figure out for my electric fencing recently. I was like, man, electricians are actually quite smart. G'day to all of our electrical clients out there.
Yeah, they are.
We have quite a few Sparkies in our group, but you are a plumber, Dan. Well, you were.
Plumber, drain layer, roofer.
Right.
Yes,
so is it are a plumber or were a plumber? What's the correct way of describing it?
I think I'll always be a plumber at heart. I don't think I still feel like I never do a day's work in the office. It still never feels like work.
That's interesting.
So,
How long have you been a shiny bum, as my dad used to call it?
4.5 full. Yeah, I sold the plumbing company about 4.5 years. So four full-time years sitting in chairs, and I don't like it.
And so even after 4 years and a successful business, which we'll talk about in a minute, you still have that same tradie disease that you don't feel like you've done any work if you haven't actually been on the tools. Yeah,
well, see behind me, this is my upstairs. I'm busy renovating my house during COVID, and I haven't been happier for years. If I'm not using my hands and actually making stuff, it's just in me.
Yeah.
I have the same conversations with my builder husband. He is off the tools now. We don't do building work. He now works in an office training. He's a trainer who writes certificate training for RTOs. And he's the same. He has to spend his weekends doing stuff around the house. Not that I'm complaining. This is lovely. Works for me. But he has to do stuff around the house to remind himself. And actually, it's not even to remind himself. It's to feel good. That's his sense of accomplishment.
Yeah.
Because for so many years, he was a builder for 25 years. You get to the end of the day, you can actually look over what you've done and you feel that sense of achievement. Whereas in what I do, I move a bit of paper around the desk. I might have actually spent an entire day working really hard on the computer, but I can't see what I've done. It's a big part of what you do on a day-to-day basis. I can't see how you could ever let that go.
And I do have to give, I'll do a day's work on the tools upstairs, and I'm probably tired when I come home, right? I'm probably like, but I feel really good.
Yeah.
But I'll do 8 hours in the office, and I'm just so mentally strained. I'm stuffed. It's not healthy. I don't think this office work.
Well, I think the office bound stuff, and a lot of our listeners struggle with, and we talk a lot about this in our groups and with our subscribers, is they are drained. Doing 8 hours, 10 hours in an office is, my OT wife will tell you that is cognitively taxing, and it does burn energy and it burns us out. Yeah. But I feel like we don't get the satisfaction of seeing what we did. There's not that feedback of, wow, I just framed up a house or split 2 ton of firewood or whatever the heck it is. You don't get that feedback. You turn off the computer and the light on the desk, and it's like, what the heck did I do all day? And I think that
And
causes
yet
a
make-
lot of
and-
angst.
and yet and it's the same as work. Doing the work is worthless until you do the invoice. And that's always annoyed me. The work counts for nothing until you get the pen out and make the first mark on paper. And the pen has always been mightier than the sword, and it still frustrates me to this day that it's always that way and will always be that way.
It's funny
Warwick.
because here in Australia we say the pen is mightier than the sword, but you guys
That's
use a pin in New Zealand. Is
I'll give you that.
I couldn't look
Dan?
after the way we started this episode, Dan. I couldn't pass that one up, mate.
No. All is fair in love and war. And, nothing
Now-
goes unnoticed.
Yeah. Now we would actually like to be business friends with you, so I should probably wind this back a bit.
Oh no. Start as you mean to continue.
Yeah. My triathlon coach used to say to me years ago, "Start how you mean to finish." I usually started pretty poorly in my triathlons, so it might explain a lot. But,
Well, you've carried on in this interview so fast, so you know.
Now, we are talking about office work, and I think something that's made it even more challenging for a lot of people when they're doing the business stuff is that largely we've gone paperless, so we don't even get that tactile satisfaction of moving papers around or clearing a stack of quotes from our tray and moving them on. We don't get that visual feedback.
I don't know about that.
Well, don't steal my Chuck Norris segue, Dan. I'm segueing into the reason we're actually talking to you today, which is not to take the puss out of Kiwis, but to actually talk about what you do now in the office, which is not plumbing, mate. So can you give our listeners a bit of a paint the picture, Dan? Who are you? What do you do? And why are we bantering with you here today on the Tradies in Business podcast, mate?
So obviously Dan Pollard, founder of Fergus Trade Software, but what is that, right? And where did that come from? Is that, shall we start there?
Sounds like an awesome place to start, mate.
So my dad's a builder, so I've been in construction my entire life, and I was actually going to be an architectural draftsman. I was enrolled to go, and he says, "No, you're not going to do that. You're going to be a plumber." And he was good. He says, "Dan, he said to me, he says, you're bright, but you're not that bright."
Thanks, Dad.
Right.
No, he was good. So Dad said, if you become an architectural draftsman, you'll be a small fish in a big pond.
That is true.
But if you became a plumber, you could actually be a big fish in a small pond. And so I became a plumber at 17, and I was a terrible apprentice.
In what way, mate?
I got the nickname of just being able to misthread everything.
Just called you cross-threader.
It's useless. And but I learned very quickly. In 11 months, I was putting my own van. So I had a very quick learning period. And then at the end of my second year, I was only 18 at this time, and I was the leading hand in the firm. I think there's about 11 guys, and I was in charge of these big subdivisions, and had 50-year-old and 40-year-old and 30-year-old plumbers reporting to me, and I'm 18 now in charge, and it was all kind of weird. And so then had a falling out with parents at 19, moved out of home, lived in a garage for a couple of years in a Skyline garage, and was really, really poor. You're earning $7-8 an hour, right? And after tax, you get like $200 a week. So I was poor. So I was working 20 hours on the weekend. It's just like the poverty you can't imagine. And so I knew to get out of poverty, I just had to work and had to go working for myself. And so in order to do that, to be successful, I was saving all my money to buy a van, have it stocked up, have a good van, could have all the tools. So by 22, I had the good van. It cost me 22 grand. So back in the 90s, that's a freaking lot of money, right?
Huge amount.
So when I was 22, did my exams, hadn't got my ticket. January, I started working for myself when I was 22. Had my van, had a couple of builders, had a couple of jobs lined up, and away I went. And I'm a pretty good plumber, like not the greatest of all time, but I'm a pretty good plumber, if that makes sense. And first year went really well. So by the time I was 23, I'd actually bought my first house, had a couple of guys working for me, working 7 hours a week, and I'm tired, right? I'm not I'm tired. Anyway, second year comes around. So I'm not in business, right? I'm just working my own job, really.
Self-employed.
Self-employed.
Yeah, employed by a lunatic.
Yeah, the lunatic. So anyway, so 22, 23, life was going good financially, right? Finding a house, had a girlfriend, had all that going on. Knew nothing about business. And you hear those stories about people who don't pay their taxes in their first year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was one of those. So the tax bills came in, and it crushed me. I actually I hadn't paid any taxes. I owed just tens of thousands of dollars in taxes, GST, payroll, you name it. It was all owing, and I crashed and burned out. So lost a relationship, had to close the business, and I actually moved into a I was going to sell the house
Gee whiz.
or do something desperate.
And this is at what age, Dan?
24.
Far out.
And so I actually was lucky enough to find a gig at a boarding school. And so in return for free food and board, one night a week, looking after the 100 kids, and one night every second weekend, one day every second weekend, you got free food, board, and accommodation. And so that was a lifesaver because I moved in there. I was a wreck emotionally. I was a proper burnout, right? And I was just contracting to another plumber. And I had to spend all year working for that contractor and paying off 60 grand to the tax department.
Whew.
That bites.
And so that was probably one of the hardest times I think I've ever gone through my entire life, where you're working. So you're earning like $2 grand a week, and after tax, you got 1,500, and I'm paying 1,200 a week to the taxman.
Jeez, mate.
I did that for a whole year.
Mm.
And but the tax department were good. If you stuck to the payment plan, there were no penalties. Just pay off what you owe, and life was going to be fine. But man, that's talking about doing it hard.
It's a lot of pressure too. Like just that constant fear of missing a payment and the consequences of will
But
I
just
have enough
going up
next
every
week?
day. Every day you're working, it's not yours. It's paying, and like 'cause it was their money, it's owed, so it's all fine. But it's still bitter, brutal, right?
Yeah,
brutal.
Mm.
So anyway, so did that for 2 years, recovered emotionally, and then had another go at 27. Started again, and learnt my lessons about taxes. And I've never got the tax trouble since. I've had accountants involved every 2 months ever since. Ever since that time, and I've just always now paid my taxes every 2 months. I never ever get behind in taxes ever again. And so I did that for a couple of years, but once again I got married, and then in that time, but I closed that business and went overseas. But once again, the pressure of quoting, invoicing, working, ordering, staff, is just hating it. Just hating it. So I quit that, went overseas, came back was away for a year, came back, went to a small town in New Zealand called Tauranga, because it's a beautiful place by the coast, and thought this would be nice. I'll be a plumber down here and have a good life. Not happy about life, but because I'm now nearly 30 now, right? And so I was working in Tauranga for a year, getting the lie of the land, and realised there was no opportunity to build a business in Tauranga. There was no wealthy middle class. About 80,000.
Okay. Yep. So it's fairly small city, like very small city.
Very small, but just no wealthy middle class.
Yep.
So all working class. A few, not like Auckland, right? There's a big executive. So it was a nice year. While I was working 5.5 days a week, just to make enough money to pay the bills again, right? And so now I'm 30, and I was like, I am actually stuffed. So I've been working 13 years as a plumber, and I think the only value I'd had to my name now was where my house had gone up in value. Right? So I had about 350 grand worth of equity, but all that was just inflation, right?
Yeah.
So I'd worked 13 years and really had nothing to show for it. And so I really looked into quitting and going back to law school to become an M&A lawyer, because I'm very argumentative.
The only skill required.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good skill, right? And I don't need anyone's affirmation, so I knew I'd be a really good lawyer. I quite gadget, right? It's kind of fun.
You know you're right.
Well, my nickname is Dan Knows because I'm often right? One of my nicknames. And but that was 10 years to get back to the same earning level, right?
Mm.
And so between 29 and 30, I'd read a lot of books, started reading. And I think my biggest revelation was I read the book, The E-Myth for Contractors. I think anyone who's read it goes, it's mind-changing, right?
Mm.
And then that just got me hooked into reading. And I think you talk to everyone, it's the same story, right? Once they start reading the right books, you get this thirst for going, oh my goodness.
Mm.
And so I reckon in a couple of years, I must have read at least 80 books on business and just got it. Because my mind then just went, as soon as I read the E-Myth for Contractors, and then I realized, oh my goodness, business is a science.
Mm.
There's no luck. And just realized how I've been doing it all wrong. I'd been completely, my poverty complex was my whole ideal. I saw people as walking wallets. And my job was to get money from their wallet to my wallet.
Yep.
And didn't really care about them at all.
Yep.
So my mindset was completely self-focused on me, not about customer outcomes. The outcome was focused, I'll give you just what I have to so I can get your money.
Mm.
Yep.
Not about actually delighting the customer and truly giving them the outcome that's good for them.
Mm.
And so learned those lessons, right? Read the E-Myth for Contractors, read about sales, marketing, business, value strategy, read all about all those things. Also read a good book called The Gold Rush. And it talks about in every age there's a gold rush. You just have to find out what it is. And so, so this is now 14 years ago. And so this is pre-iPhone. Google was just starting to get big. I was like, there's something in this data.
Mm.
So, okay. So I thought, well, I'll go back to Auckland and I'll have another shot at doing a plumbing business, right? Because I have to get some staff and get some money, get some capital. And I read a good book on Edmund Hillary. He climbed Everest first.
Yep.
Not an Australian, by the way. And it talks about why he's on the $5 note.
Yes.
And it's not that he climbed the hill, it's that he was prepared to die that morning to climb the hill. Mm. And it talks about if you want to achieve anything that was worthwhile, you actually have to go all in.
Yep.
And be prepared to die. And so it was actually quite a powerful book, actually. Oh, it's going to make me a bit emotional. I could feel it actually welling up. And so, because I had failed twice, right, in my other plumbing companies, I was like, I'm not going to fail a third time. Mm. And so I made a promise to myself. Sorry.
It's all right, mate. We love a bit of emotion on the show, mate.
Funny how they come back. The emotions come back, isn't it? It was a long time ago. That I would do whatever it took, but I was not going to fail a third time.
Mm.
If that makes sense, because it's not good. Coming back off from failure, it's friggin' hard.
It is hard.
Was that connected to something for you, Dan? I mean, we all have our reasons for going again, but that obviously, that's tapping into some emotion for you. But that whole thing of I'm not going to fail a third time, was there a why or a reason behind that?
Sure, poverty.
Mm.
Like I've been dirt poor.
Mm.
It's not good. And it's not good to be poor. It sucks. Life's hard.
Mm.
And I think my first rule is not to be a burden to others.
Mm.
Right? Your first rule is don't be a burden to others.
Mm.
And so my first rule is I have to take care of myself. If I can't take care of myself, I can't take care of my wife and children and family. So I had to get my shit together.
Yeah.
And so I read the books and I was like, I'm a very good plumber, right? So I can always get work. And like this time I was like, okay, I've learned a lot of lessons. I'm sure I've learned the lessons. If I put the customers first and staff first and just put in systems and processes, I know it will work. It's worked for everyone else.
Yep.
Because the thing is, the book made the point, if some firms can get to 25,000 staff, and you can't get to 5,
Yeah.
well, guess what? It's more you.
It's not that the model doesn't work. It's
Not the model doesn't work.
Actually, yeah.
And so I came back to Auckland at 30, 31. Started again, just me. So just me. And by the time I was 38, we had 25 staff in 2 branches in the plumbing company. Multi-million-dollar turnover business, 17 vehicles on the road.
Gosh.
And I had also done 2 software startups. I think I had 14 people in the software company, 12 or 14 in the software company, and I had an office in Melbourne as well.
Goodness.
So in 7 or 8 years,
Yeah.
nailed it.
I'm loath to butt in, and I'm going to anyway, Dan. and mate, firstly, I just want to say thank you for sharing and for being genuine and authentic on the podcast. And we have a lot of guests, and we've done a lot of interviews at Tradies in Business, and it's a rare commodity, is that authenticity and genuine sharing. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And I'm sure our listeners appreciate it too. And just to labour that point a little bit, it's something that I think good tradies or good trade business owners, they know that that's an important part of running a great business, is the ability to, as the leader, to actually be genuine, vulnerable, authentic. There's a lot of talk about it, but there's not as much action around that particular cultural point. So that's shining through, mate.
Oh, you're welcome. There's 2 things with that, though. I do say it's important to be vulnerable and genuine, but it's not okay to whinge and moan.
There's a big distinction between the 2.
Yeah. So I've never whinged and moaned to my staff. I've definitely said, I'm under some pressure to get this right. There's some pressure. We've got to deliver these outcomes for sure, and this is the plan. And so, as I say, if leadership is like it's always like the army, right? If there's a battle to take the hill, and the troops find that the captain is in his bed drunk, scared, no one's going to follow. No one's going to commit. The captain has to be out front, bright and early, shiny, well dressed, on point. He can still say, it's going to be a tough day, boys. Yep, I'm worried. Yep. But this is the plan. Let's go.
Yep.
And that's leadership.
Yeah, it's more about the energy that we bring to that leadership role than obviously title and position and all that sort of stuff. And I feel like, and I'd be interested to get your thoughts on this, Dan. Some leaders I see think that lead by example means they have to, in that sort of military example, be the one picking up the rifle and running into the volley of bullets and sacrificing themselves. But longer term, that's actually detrimental to their people, because if they go down, then who's actually leading? I think lead by example means different things to different people. So I'd be interested to get your thoughts on that, mate.
Well, I think there's always leadership is always depending what's going on at the moment, right? So if things are good, then it's servant-based leadership, empowering others. In times of crisis, then it's time to get in the trenches and pick up the rifle. And so you must look at the situation and respond appropriately. And typically speaking, when things are under pressure, most people have fear and flight. And that's when the leaders need to step in and lead by example and go, follow me, and people will then tuck in behind. But when things are good and things are safe, then leaders should be behind, pushing the troops out front to go.
Yep.
Dan, is this something that you learned or something that you always knew?
Really interesting. I've thought about this a lot. So my grandfather was military police. My dad's always been a leading hand. He's always been self-employed. We've had a farm. We've always had people working for us. And he taught me the lessons of leadership. And I'm also blessed with a strong personality as well. But definitely seeing leadership in action by my father and grandfather has been instrumental at knowing how to lead men. And it's as I say, like everything is like a six-sided dice. You have to look at all sides of the dice at all times, and it's never just one thing. Everything's always very dynamic. But the principles in play around leadership are servant, lead by example, pushing or pulling, and you just need to see what's going on and see what's required.
Interesting. You mentioned animals. I talked.
Did I talk about Sparky again, did I?
Sorry.
Nothing.
So I live on acreage, and you know, I grew up on a sort of hobby farm as a kid, and probably identify more as you know, country rather than city as far as my own culture goes, and fascinated by animals. And my wife's a horse person, and we've got a few cattle and chickens, and there's this concept of pressure to, you know, interact with animals, but to get them to move in a certain direction. And for me, it's a fantastic analogy, and it's probably a bit cheesy, but you have to know when to apply pressure, where to apply the pressure, and also when to release pressure. And I see, sadly, a lot of leaders that are just constantly applying pressure and thinking that it's a never-ending push, as you say, you know, that push-pull. But, you know, sometimes releasing that pressure can be just as powerful a move as a leader as applying it in the first place.
Well, I mean, that's exactly, I mean, I use the term amplification all the time. How do you amplify yourself through others through influence, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that starts a long, long way behind.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, monkey see, monkey do. The single biggest thing that will cripple anyone's authority is hypocrisy.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if, like, I tell guys, if you want your tradies to do a good job for the customer, you want them to be neat and tidy, and they come in, your workshops are shitty, your offices are paper, it's got everywhere, you got crappy systems, you're a mess, you're unshaven, you're untidy, what are you saying? You're actually saying, I don't care. What you're saying is, do as I say, don't do as I do. You have no authority when you are like that. So then you are reduced to yelling and shouting and threatening.
Yep.
If you want your guys to do the best work, buy them the best power tools. Why would you buy them crap from Bunnings? Buy them the Hiltis. You know, if you want them, why do you buy them the worst, cheapest work boots you can? You say, what you're saying is, I value my money more than you. That's what you say. Like, can we talk a bit about the single biggest lesson of extreme examples reveal a hidden truth? It's an amazing, amazing exercise to go through. I'll shorten it down so it's a long exercise. So extreme examples reveal a hidden truth, right? What the hell does that mean? What it means is, how do you know what decision to make? How do you make good decisions? And so the example we were taught was, what keeps the car on the road, right? And people have to work out what keeps the car on the road. Is it weight, gravity, what is it? And so then what you do, extreme examples, you extreme things. So you make the road polished ice, and you make the tires really wide polished aluminium. And then say, now how far will the car go? And you even can see in mind the car will go narrow, it'll spin. And you say, well, put rubber tires back on, the car will go, right? So it's friction from rubber that keeps the car on the road. So the most extreme examples of leadership is the military, because they've worked out how to get people to die for a cause.
Yep.
So the extreme. So what have they learned at how to get people to commit for a cause? And so that's why I use those examples. So what they've learned, which every business owner needs to learn, is they absolutely instill pride in their group, in the uniform, in their kit. The military provide them with the best tools. They don't go and buy the $5 knockoff guns. No. Best training, best equipment, best pride. Because a military wants to go to war knowing it's got great leaders, great support, great training, great tools. Because that's what the men need to have confidence to go and commit to a cause. So what are you doing in your business? It's the men go, you've actually got my back here. Tell you what, cheap boots, cheap tools, cheap uniforms, cheap vans. It says I care more about money than I do about this business with you or the customer.
And it's simple stuff too, isn't it, Dan? Like, it doesn't, although Hilti power tools might be perceived as expensive, there's a value in that in terms of loyalty and performance and even just the tools themselves. I mean, everyone talks about buy it once is the cheapest way to buy things. We know that, particularly as tradies. And I have to say, within our group, what we do see, or what's visible to Coxie and I, is that largely our members and I hope our listeners as well tend to follow that ethos of quality tools, quality vehicles, good signage, all that sort of stuff. But I guess there's this misconception around running a lean business and keeping things profitable. I think sometimes we look at the wrong areas to cut when we're trying to do that.
Well, I think my issue is always there. If a business should absolutely provide a return to the shareholders, right? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But only after it can run itself properly. If you just, I cannot stand talking to business owners who see their business as extraction. They're just trying to extract as much wealth out of it for their personal life. So you're not here to run a business. You're just here to try and make money. It's awful. If a business is based on genuine outcomes to the property owners and the employees, then you actually make more money. And actually, I prove that. I've been completely self-centered, didn't work. I focus on the customer 100%. I know 25 staff in 8 years. And mate, that thing drops out proper cash.
It's a massive shift of thinking. And you spoke about that, about how you had to go through the trenches for those few years for you to have that shift in thinking so that you could then come out and create this business that was profitable and then more businesses after that. But was it as simple, or I think we're making it sound very simple, that reading the books created the change in your mind, but it's actually then actioning that change on a day-to-day basis. It's putting those steps in place. It's very easy to read a book and think, oh, that's what I should be doing, but then not doing it because we get busy or bogged down or whatever it might be.
Well, I think what for me was, I'd learned quite clearly doing it wrong. The pain of that doesn't work.
Yes. You had a big motivator.
I had a big motivator. Like I learned very well, though that doesn't work. I'm not doing that way again. So I'm not done. And the definition of insanity, as we all know, is to do the same thing over and over, right?
Yep.
And I'm not going to repeat those mistakes again. Yeah.
So going back and Coxie's raised a point that I wanted to dig into a little further, Dan, is you've talked about, and you shared very openly, that decision that I'm not going to fail this time. Like, the flip side is I'm going to succeed this time. And obviously, we all have our own definition of success. There was more to it than just having a third go. It didn't just randomly go, oh, well, this time it actually worked out. I wanted to just go back and have a look at perhaps some of the shifts or the fundamental changes that you did make that resulted in this amazing success over 7 or 8 years.
Yeah, well, yes. Okay. So the single biggest thing, Fergus is based on this principle. So the software is based on this same thing. The only thing that matters in business is cash flow and profit. Off the cash flow and profit, everything else is built upon.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's the simple premise. So therefore, when I went to business a third time, I was going to be invoicing every day. Every day. And so even when I was one person, I had one part-time office person immediately. And I think when I had 3 or 4 staff, I had 2 part-time office people in. And we were invoicing every day. And so, and I also since decided I wasn't going to yell at people anymore.
So you'd obviously done that previously, mate?
Oh, mate, my grandfather's military police.
Just checking.
Like, I think my greatest moment is like, I'm not a big guy. I'm 1.72. I think I've been about 66, 68 kilos most of my entire life. I think I'm about 75 now, right? So I'm not a big guy, right? I think I had about 15 drainage working for me under my control, and no one will ever challenge me on site.
Mm.
You will not challenge me on site. Like I am and always will be the boss. However, you don't always have to be in someone's face, right?
Correct.
You actually want willing workers who do the right thing because they respect you.
Mm.
Absolutely. Not because they feel they have to or because out of fear, you know?
And I think because I've been through a lot of relationships, and I also decided, I also worked out the quality of your life depends on the quality of your relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Shitty relationships equals shitty life.
Very true.
And so I was like, actually, I want to build a business where I've got nice staff and nice customers, and we all just want to work together. And so, and also, you have to keep things simple, right? KISS, right? Keep it simple, stupid. You probably use it a lot.
Especially the last
Especially with Warwick.
Yeah.
I beat ya.
Yeah. And so my value vision, I combined the two to keep it simple, was to be friendly and reliable and the local plumber of choice.
Mm.
Just to be friendly and reliable, right? And so straight away, every day, we just on paper job cards, but I would just have the office people calling the tradies up and getting the hours off them. Right, so rather than yelling at them and chasing them and wondering what's going on, it's just, no, just call them. You know what? When you've got 3 or 4 guys, it takes about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're paying an office person $25 an hour, so it costs you about $8.
Mm.
All the arguing goes away, all the stress goes away,
Mm.
all the headaches go away, and it's done every day. And then the dockets come in and we just did a simple thing with suppliers is the golden rule still is today is what you buy is charged.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't buy 2 or 3 jobs in one docket, and what you buy will be charged to the customer. So only buy what you use, don't overbuy.
Mm.
Right. So those come in, the hours girls got the hours, and we're invoicing the ability to invoice every day, right? So I've got cash flow from day one. Very important. And so I just had office people from day one. Never again was I going to ever get behind that cash flow ball. Now it was still burning me out because I was still working 10 o'clock, midnight. I would do that 5 nights a week. I'd start Sunday night to Thursday night, and I'd work all day and then do the kids. It's also important to also just to I don't know. So between 30 and 38, I also finished off 2 apprenticeships as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to do 2 years to do my gas fitting,
Mm-hmm.
and I did my drain apprenticeship. And I had 2 kids, and I was doing plumbing, growing the software companies and doing the businesses and going to tech and doing work experience for other trades to get those tickets. It's ridiculous.
Have you finished
Did
the,
you even-
sorry, have you finished the child raising apprenticeship yet, Dan?
Yeah, I've outsourced that now.
Love it.
And it's much easier now that they're 11 and 13.
Mm.
Yeah.
So easy. Well, do you want to hear about the last couple of years?
Yeah.
So
tell us.
any other fundamental changes though, mate, before you sort of bring us
Yeah,
to the present?
cash flow is everything. And then there's a whole, but I knew the problem. We'll talk about how I got into software yet, right? Because this is the bit that was leading into, it was still brutal. Don't be wrong, it's still brutal, right? But at least I had cash flow.
Mm.
So cash papers over all cracks, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
So at least still grinding out quoting and still grinding out job management and order materials and working all day and still grinding all that out. So life still is not fun.
Mm.
Got young kids, going to tech,
Mm.
studying. Yep, just grinding it out, right? But I've made that commitment.
So what was the
Yeah.
turning point, mate?
No, there wasn't. It took it took years, to be fair.
Mhm.
But the commitment was, I'm not going to fail a third time.
Yep.
Right. So all you have to do is get out of bed every morning and keep going, right? because that is less hard than shutting shop.
Mm.
Would it be fair to say it's still hard though to do it that way?
Yes.
It's a lesser hard, and I'm sure there's listeners sitting there or standing there or whatever they're doing to listen to this episode thinking, well, that's what I'm doing. I'm just getting out of bed and grinding every day because I will not fail.
Yes. Now, the difference is I had a plan though, right? Of what I was trying to build. So I was trying to build a 10 van business that had enough office staff so I didn't have to work on the tools.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a very clear plan in my mind. I needed to build a operational structure that could afford to have office people and tradespeople and have cash so I didn't have to be there every day. So that's what I was working towards, and knowing I needed a full-time office people and full-time operations people. And I was working towards that. I had no idea the software was going to go so well. So, but everyone needs to. Well, it'll be very interesting when we talk about software, because that is game changing.
Well, that's where I sort of wanted to get to is, and you're about to talk about the last couple of years. Obviously, you've busted your tail to, let's say, avoid failure.
Yeah.
What actually was part of achieving success, though? Because for me, they're two different things. Avoiding failure and achieving success are often quite different.
Well, I would say in the last couple of years of the trades business, right, when I was starting to see 10 grand of cash come in a day. So there's 25 staff. I'm working there 2 or 3 hours a week because I'm now on the software full time. Mm-hmm. And you sit back and you go, holy heck, this thing is bringing in 10 grand of cash a day. It pays all its bills on time. Mm-hmm. Everyone gets paid on time, and I'm doing bugger all. That's an amazing, that is a hard feeling to describe.
Yeah.
Like, it's 50 grand a week is coming in, 10 grand a day. Sure, most of the money's going out in wages and bills, and right, why not? That's fine.
Yep.
But it's coming in, and that feeling of achievement is phenomenal. Because yes, you're always stressed, but it's good stress, right? Because it's like, okay, you've got 25 staff. How can I be more strategic? How can I improve the business? How can I improve processes, policies? I mean, that's great stress. That's great. I mean, that's the right pressure. Yeah. Bad pressure is I can't pay my staff. I can't pay my suppliers. Everyone owes me money.
Yep.
There will always be stress. You just want it to be the right sort of stress.
Yeah. Yeah. Mark Manson
talks serious, isn't it?
In one of his books about choosing the problems that we want to have.
Yeah.
Life always has problems. It's just like we actually get to choose which problems we have.
Well, I learned a great one last year. Oz is so good. You ready? There are no victims, only volunteers.
It is bloody good.
That's a great way to put it. Fabulous way to put it. So the software. Let's talk about Fergus. So when did that brain grenade go off?
So I've been in software, believe it or not. I did JobSheet originally. It's a little one in New Zealand somewhere. And so Fergus about 12 years ago, I run the software. Now, I did not get into software for any grand change the world plan. But I was trying to improve my business, right? And so where the business really failed the previous 2 times, and I was aware that this problem was going to come, was the ability to create a job card, right? Give that to a tradesperson. Getting the hours from that job card back onto the job, onto the timesheet, onto the back costing, and a KPI for how much they were charging it out. That was still a perennial problem, that no visibility around the hours and what was going on in the business.
Yep.
And so I went looking for software at the time, and there was nothing out in the market that would allow me to create a job, schedule it, get the hours back in, do timesheet, back costing, invoicing, and staff KPI. Nothing. And because I made that vow, proper commitment to be successful and not fail, I was like, well, stuff it, I'll build it then. That was literally it. It's not gonna beat me this time. I'll just build it myself. Because how hard can it be, right? It's just I know what I want. So I found a mate who knew about computers, because I literally knew nothing apart from how to do an email. And so I found a guy, sketched out what I wanted, and we made software, and then we integrated holding price books in it, and had job sheet to the market in 9 months, and we had about 30 grand of revenue very quickly. And I had to go around selling job sheet, because I was starting to pump money, like big money, into job sheet. $250,000, I think, pumped into it, right? But then the plumbing company started growing. Yep. Like we grew quite quickly to, like, I think we were 3 or 4 when I started, and we were 6 or 8, and I was like, oh shit, that went well. Right. But so that went well. So then they had a falling out with that guy in that business, and over the couple of years I really got the hang of doing software. Was quite good at it, and so then decided to do it better, and found some guys, and we did Fergus. And Fergus is still based on these principles of cash flow and profit. And for those of you who don't know, you should all bow down and worship. I've really changed the industry in New Zealand. Right, we're the ones who pioneered getting the supplier invoices sent digitally. So that's game change. Everyone's taking it for granted now.
Yes.
But I was one who had to go around the suppliers and talk to them and force them to give us this information as CSV files so we could import it and use it.
Jeez.
Because that has just changed the industry, right?
Yeah.
So, and oh my God, like, it's hard to explain. So I committed $1 million. I've spent over $1 million of my own cash from the plumbing company into Fergus software, plus job sheet money, because I had no real. I sort of was going to sell it just to try and make some money back on what I was investing in it, right? But I was that committed to never failing again. I was like, stuff it, I'm all in. I'm just going to keep spending the money until I build a business that just freaking works, and that actually cost $1 million.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they're deep buckets. The software development.
Yeah, and now people can get it for a couple of grand a year.
Yeah,
and I think it still kind of bugs me a bit. Like, I spent $1 million of my own money, and that's 1.5 million because that was an asset, because there was no R&D on that at the time. So I just earned 1.5 million of real money and spend it on systems. But that's the commitment it takes to build something, is all in.
But if I can just jump in there, Dan. Well, I just did, so thank you. It's an interesting point to make, though. The amount of time, effort, money you've invested into a system that people nowadays see as something so simple, and you used the term before, taking things for granted. We take for granted a lot of these systems that we use now, but the power that they have in our businesses can be enormous if they're used well, because there is so much investment behind them. You know, whether it's an HR system or a job management system, even just bookkeeping and accounting software nowadays. You know, people, I think a lot of us don't realise what's gone into creating that system that allows us to leverage that and create incredible results for our own businesses.
Oh, I mean, I'd love to share the emails of people just thanking us for the webinars and the coaching and the tools they use to save them.
Yeah.
When I started, I was still doing GST with double entry bookkeeping systems on. Remember those days, by pen and paper?
I tried to explain double entry accounting to somebody recently, and I gave up because I was like, I've been doing this for 20 years. It's really hard to explain in 10 minutes.
And then you put zero in, does your GST automatically. You put GST zero and Fergus together, you run your business.
Yeah, and you can do it for, I don't know, $100, $200 a month. You know, depending on how many people you got and users and all that sort of stuff. But it's just it's phenomenal the stuff we can do. So, so Dan, you've created this software. I assume that you're using your own software in your plumbing business these days.
Yeah, I sold it, and I sold that now.
Hey, okay, nice.
Sold that. I sold that 4 years ago. So I sold that for. That was also still one of my success moments in my life.
Mm.
So that's a 7-figure sale, right?
Mm. Do you have a like one of those big fake checks on the wall or something that you create?
No, but it's like written. It's sort of written in my heart of, yeah.
Yep.
That's success. I exited good figure on my own terms. Yeah.
So for tradies listening, then we're talking about Fergus. Really important question, Dan. How'd you come up with the name, mate?
I actually really believe in brand and values, and I also. Well, this is real bad, but our audience will get it. So we had some placeholder names. No, I can't actually. Can I? Can I? Is it good? No.
Of course you can.
You like, but...
well, one of our placeholder names was Trade Smack, and
awesome.
And we just because I wanted something that was like because I had Job Sheet, but there was Trade Pro and Sim Pro and Pro Workflow. It's like, man,
yeah,
not doing it for me. And then one day, I was just like, Fergus, he's my little Jack Russell.
Mm.
Okay.
And he was loyal, man. He was with me in those 15 years. He was with me every day under the houses. And, trades get it, right? When you're under a house for a couple of days and it's cold and damp and bleak, life is, it's not great.
No.
But he's there.
Yep.
Every day. So he was friendly and reliable.
Awesome, mate. I love it.
And so those are still our core values, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Friendly and reliable. And also, yeah. And so it's good to be different, right?
Mm. It is good to be different. You stand out from the crowd. You immediately impart your values with your logo and the name of your business,
Correct.
Which is a big point of difference to many others in the way that they're doing business.
Yeah.
I'm really interested to know what life looks like now for you, Dan. You're not plumbing, you're not on the tools anymore. You're working really hard in your Fergus company. What does life look like? What does it feel like?
Actually, no, life is no. I believe success means you shouldn't be working in your own business.
Love it.
Because actually, so Fergus has got 45 staff now, I think, in 2 countries. We've got a full-time professional CEO. He's amazing. Way better at being a CEO than I am.
That's I laugh at that, but that's a big thing to say, Dan, for any leader and creator.
Oh, I don't think so.
That's the entire point. I think you've just summed it up perfectly with your answer. It's leadership is recognizing your own strengths and abilities and the strengths and abilities of others and allowing yourself to step aside and let the better person take that role. So I think you've nailed it with your answer perfectly.
Yeah, and also, why would you want to be a CEO?
Yeah, so
it's
true.
So stressful.
It's so stressful. Like the pressure is immense.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I do find it quite funny. He earns way more money than I do, but I'm like, you're more power to him.
Yes.
Because he's growing the business better than I did.
Yeah.
And it will do way better under him. And I get to be the founder. I get to talk to you guys. How great's this? I love the trade, right? Look, want to see them do really well. So I get to talk to tradies and hopefully try and help them and inspire them to go, you can do it.
Mm.
You can actually get on top.
And I would like that point to sink in for listeners, that you pay your CEO more than you get paid.
Mm.
Yeah.
Right? I really want that to settle in for listeners and just think about how that might apply in their own business, their own life, of, stop thinking the old ways that we should get paid the most just because.
Just because what?
Exactly. So, yes, just think about that, listeners. And send your feedback to Dan.
Yeah. But I mean, like the thing I did want us to touch on though was don't repeat dumb mistakes that everyone else does. Like, please do get coaching. I wasted 7 years of my life making mistakes that I could have learned in 6 months from getting coaching and mentorship and signing up to people.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care if you use Fergus or a competitor. Using something is 10 times better than nothing.
That's right. That's right.
So anyone who's spent effort to codify, write down, is going to be 100 times better than what you've done by doing nothing. And it's just going to cost you a little bit of money. Like, pretty much in business, if you think about it, spending money will solve every single problem.
Yeah.
Of course.
Well, you said before that, cash papers over all cracks.
All cracks.
And I often say to people, cash can fix all of your problems. If you've got enough cash, you can solve all of your problems. I mean, that's the world, the capitalist world that most of us live in, and certainly most of our listeners. If you've got enough money, you can fix all your problems. So,
that's like, but that's amazing that literally you can solve problems with money. Isn't it amazing?
And you don't even have to be that smart. You just got to have enough money.
Yeah. And not a lot of money.
Even a plumber can do it. So I have a question, Dan, that I like to ask all of our guests. Now, you've already given some absolute nuggets in the last 60 minutes, but I'm losing track of all of the axioms that I should have been writing down as you were sharing them, mate. But I do have a question I like to ask, and I'd be fascinated to see what pops out of this one. Am I okay to ask it now, Coxie?
Please do.
I just had to check with the woman first.
No, I'm taking I can't go on a date with you. I'm sorry.
Come on, Dan.
Well, you were admiring my glasses before, but that was right.
Well, you did look really cute today, I'd say.
You took the mickey out of my grey hair. So, Dan, if you had 1,000 tradies in a room, let's call them trade business owners or self-employed tradies, right? Yeah. So 1,000 of them in a room, what is one piece of advice or one thing you would like to share with them?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. I'm unrehearsed for this. No, I'm sorry, I'm not going to answer that way. Life is like a 6-sided dice. There are quite a few things you must do. I still think the biggest single thing you must learn to do is stop thinking you're important.
Coxie's fist bumping for those that can't.
I just
see
love
the video.
that.
Yeah,
love it.
Yeah, you've got to put the customer and your staff first. Truly, you've actually got to make them the center of your business. That's the first rule. Then on that foundation, everything else will start flowing. That's the first. So I think that has to be the center from what you build your business on. The second one then is getting the people and processes in place that bring that to life. And be honest that you're probably not smart enough. And that's great. Like, what's wrong with saying I'm a great tradie, but I'm actually not that good at business? What's wrong with that? I don't understand. Like, I was a good CEO, but I'm not great. But how could I be? I've never employed 100 people. We don't expect an apprentice to be in the van from day one.
Yeah.
So don't be unreasonable on yourself. But don't be stupid and lazy and tight. So if you're not the best, spend some money and get coaching and training and advice. Because it's not acceptable to just to not be great. Like that book, Going Good to Great, it's not acceptable to be half-assed in your business. So customer-centric first, then absolutely set your business up to be awesome, but just spend money and get help to make that a reality. And then get out of the way.
This is just gold upon gold.
It's like the 3.5 point plan.
Yes.
Yeah, because the thing is, like, what I don't understand, if you can earn like $90, $100 an hour, right, as a tradie, and you're not very good at your office work and you don't like it, which I don't, why don't you not employ people and just get back and earn money? Life's great.
Mm.
Sounds simple to us.
It's simple. It's only, and typically speaking, it's only your own ego that prevents you from doing what you should do.
And there is the real gold.
Yes. Well,
Love it, love it.
Dan, I'm sure we could go for another 2 hours, mate. I have a funny
Well, the
feeling
way
you may have
gave
done
them
that
eyes is
before.
wonderful.
So Fergus, obviously built on your experience and a lot of your principles and your ethos around business and what's important, and we absolutely love that. If listeners are wondering where to find out more, mate, have the team told you all the right social handles and websites and stuff to share with us at this point, or?
I think everyone just goes, howawesomesdan.com, and I just sign up.
I was going to say danknows.com, and that's
Dan
I
knows.
should buy that. It's a good idea. Instagram handle is which Fergus app, or just go Fergus. We're just everywhere.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the website is
Fergus.com.
great.
Just too
Easy
easy.
peasy.
Awesome. Now we're going to put all the links in the show notes as we usually do. Go and check out Fergus for a lot of our Australian listeners, and we have a bit of a Kiwi following now. They're managing to decode my accent, so that's impressive. But for the Aussies, if you haven't heard of Fergus, go and check them out. Definitely worth a look. You've heard it from the guy that created the whole thing, or kicked it off anyway. So I think a lot of people will identify with that, Dan. So thank you so much for sharing more than just a talk about software today. It's been fantastic, mate.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Warwick. Thank you, Coxie. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Dan. Great to have you on the show.
I hope to be back.
You will.
There you go. The boss said it, mate.
You will.
You'll be back.
Thank you. Loved it.
Mate, thanks for your time.
Okay. Take care. Bye.
Well,
Phew.
Take a breath, listeners, and breathe. That was a cracker. I'd put that Coxie in my top 3 episodes ever here at Tradies in Business.
I totally agree, and I'm not even going to make you name the other 2.
Well, I can't remember. So I was trying to be fair to someone else who I might have said that was my best episode ever.
Do you know what? If we asked Dan, because Dan knows, I bet he'd say it's the best ever episode.
Yes, indeedy. But what did you think, listeners? Pretty mind-blowing story. And
It's a cracking story.
I wanted to go back and write down all of his axioms and his nuggets. There's no victims, only volunteers. There's just some incredible little snippets from Dan's journey.
Snippets, Chuck Norris, snippets. Hey, but if you want to Chuck Norris this, what we're going to say is, but wait, there's more. And I'm not
Yes.
talking about steak knives, and I'm not talking about any of those other Dentel products that used to be sold.
Or Hilti power tools.
No, we are talking about more gold. We did an
More of Dan.
extended
Mm.
version of the Dan interview for our trade desk customers, members, subscribers, however you would like to term that. We did more, and oh my goodness, it will take your breath away.
Holy crap. I thought Dan was just going to stick around and do a 10 or 15 minute deeper dive into his story and some of the challenges that he had. And we had the Kleenex out. We had to take a breath and take a break. I wasn't expecting what we got from Dan at all, and really grateful that we did. Quite surprising. Actually, I was a bit shocked to hear about some of his motivation for starting the software business in the first place. Way beyond what you heard in today's episode. So if you're one of our premium members, whether that's Trade Desk or Drawing Board or Tradiepreneur, then go log into the Trade Desk portal to your member dashboard and head over to the Trade Desk podcast. You'll find the audio there. We're also going to pop it into the videos section in our special interviews section. And if you're not a premium member, then don't forget, we're actually letting you get in there for free at the moment during the COVID crisis. Who knows when that's going to end? It's costing Coxie and I a fortune. But, but we're doing that because we actually want to help as many tradies as we can to choose a different path. You know, you've listened to Dan talk about his journey today. And Coxie and I really want you to make a change, do something different. So go to tradiesinbusiness.com.au, go sign up to the Trade Desk. You'll need to put your credit card details in to complete your registration, and make sure you use the code tradies4tradies. That's the number 4. That's the coupon code. So you'll see it asks you, there's a little spot there to put a coupon in. Do put the code in. You'll get your first month for free. We will then remind you 7 days before we take any money from you if you don't want that membership to roll over and become a paid subscription. But go check out Dan's extended interview during your free trial, and tell me that you don't want to stick around after that.
So true.
Go sign up to that. And for everybody, go listen to Dan's extended interview. It's a cracker. So thanks for tuning in to Tradies in Business, and we'll see you with our next podcast tomorrow.
Never a breath in between.
No. Thanks a lot. Hooroo.
You've been listening to the Tradies in Business podcast with Warwick Bidwell and Nicole Cox. Find out more about today's guest, tools for your trade business, and other cool stuff at tradiesinbusiness.com.au.